It was mealtime in the imperial palace. The son of the empire, empress, and the main character sat down at the table. Marcus Odor Constans, ruler of the empire, wondered why he hadn't returned sooner. It's a miracle the light didn't damage his eyes. Why was Marcus the last to know about his brother? The crown prince had been busy plotting, while Marcus watched from the shadows. He looked at his sibling with contempt. No one expected this outcome. It's unfortunate, Marcus said. The main character arrived at the palace, knowing everything had changed. Let the past remain in the past. Elon may ask the emperor for anything, and his uncle will reward him generously. In honor of Elon's recovery, the empire will hold a grand feast. This is the most joyful event and must be celebrated accordingly. Duke Claven approached his uncle, requesting permission to marry. The empress was aware that since Elon's return, he had never left his estate. Meanwhile, the only descendant of Odor wished to announce he had found a candidate for his wife. "This is hardly the right time," the empress remarked. Xavier's position had always been precarious and undesirable, but His Majesty promised the Duke he would not oppose whoever Elon chose. Duke Claven also requested the issuance of an official decree. "Anything for the sake of my nephew," the Emperor smiled warmly. He was truly delighted by Elon's recovery. However, issuing a decree was no simple matter. Elon's chosen one was an escaped slave from a neighboring country, an unusual and delicate situation, especially if the girl was a commoner. Such a fact would only play into the Empress's son's hands. It was her son who was supposed to inherit the scarlet eyes, but Xavier was born defective and pathetic, though he would still be emperor. The Empress had been pleased when Elon lost his sight, as it put her position and her heir's claim at risk. "The Emperor's dear nephew is so eager to marry," she said coldly. "What is His Highness waiting for? Let him issue the decree quickly." The son of the Empire had barely had time for lunch before everyone began demanding official documents from him. His Highness promptly issued a new decree regarding the marriage of the Empire's finest warrior. It was swift and straightforward. This paper was Elon's only chance to find Lorena. No reward could compare to the document that would allow them to marry. It was the most precious gift. The main character was lost in thoughts of Lorena, while she was very close. Alicia's heart sank immediately upon seeing him. It was Elon. Her soul yearned for him, but the main character didn't recognize her, and Elon didn't recognize the one who had been near all along. From behind the trees came a crunch of a branch. The secret villain of Nolla had been watching them from the shadows all this time. Again, this damned descendant of God. How dare Elon approach Xavier's prey? It was his property. Xavier always wanted what he couldn't have, and always got it through dirty, immoral means. The Empress had kept Duchess Uther in her room for quite a while. Even her hopeless son should have had enough time to spin Alicia's nonsense. Young and impressionable girls now considered every meeting fateful, so Xavier had already turned her head. Xavier was not a bad young man because of his handsome appearance. Dirty rumors about his escapades began to spread. "Nothing more." Well, said the mother. "That's why she thinks Xavier is handsome, and the rumors are based on his rotten nature." The maid lowered her head and reported to Her Majesty that her son had not come to the garden where Alicia was. "What do you mean? Alicia was there all this time, completely alone. Couldn't this cretin do something properly?" Miss Uther's loneliness was brightened by the descendant of Oda. The Relin had accidentally met Alicia, and they drank tea together. The Empress's face immediately changed again. This unbearable boy was ruining all her plans. Alicia should be a shield for her stupid and hopeless son. Xavier was no match for Elon, nor was anyone else in the Empire. So Alicia's choice would be obvious. The Imperial Palace was Her Highness's territory. How dare this ruby-eyed boy encroach on her political arena? This greatest and wildest beast intended to seduce the Empress's favoured flower and take the spoils from her only son. The maid immediately rushed to her mistress. "Everything is fine with Her Highness. She looks terrible." The stupid boy, after the most worthy descendant of Odor regained his sight, he completely lost his. A manic threat flashed in the greedy woman's eyes. She would not give up power to anyone. Meanwhile, the main character walked toward the carriage with his faithful Cedric by his side. "How did everything go today, my lord?" Cedric asked. "Very productively," Elon replied. "Duke Claven has ordered the search for Lorena to be stopped. Instead, we must gather all information about Lady Aliciaratha. The knights and guilds are to complete this swiftly and quietly." "It will be done." The knight bowed respectfully. He was glad to see Lillian in such a determined mood. A deep night draped over the empire. The loyal knights of the descendant of Odor swiftly completed their mission. On Elon's desk lay all the information he needed about Alessia Uther. According to numerous rumors, Miss Alicia Uther had gone missing 6 months ago. After an attack, doctors diagnosed her with complete memory loss. Recently, 2 weeks ago, she was expelled from the Hadda Temple. Fully recovered, she had appeared back in her native home. A radiant smile spread across Ilan's face. Everything was finally coming together. He could feel it in his heart. The main character never saw his beloved, but he always felt her presence, and it never deceived him. At last, the young man had found the girl. She had violet eyes and silver hair. To be honest, Elon had never expected to meet her at the Imperial Palace. What a twist of fate. He hadn't wanted to go to the palace at all that day, but now he was grateful he did. How complicated it all was. Elon shouldn't have existed, second in line to the throne, second by birthright. A child born with the eyes of a god appears only once a generation and must inevitably become emperor. This unbreakable rule had stood for over 1,000 years. For the first time in the empire's history, a descendant of Odor was born from a collateral line. Aline had understood since childhood that his existence alone could spark a new war. For that reason, he deliberately distanced himself from cousins and relatives. He refused to be the cause of chaos and cruelty. It wasn't his fault. It was the problem of those blinded by tradition and the will of the empire's gods. Only a true descendant of Odor could rule. This was the law. Xavier was unworthy. Why had no one ever asked Elion or Xavier what they wanted? The protagonist felt uncomfortable in the Imperial Palace, oppressed by Xavier's presence. So he went to the front lines of the war, where every soldier's position was equal. Everyone made their own choices. Elon had only returned to the palace because of the Emperor's decree, but fate had sent him a gift. Now, the decree held no meaning, but it was better left in place. Lorena was a liar. Red hair, blue eyes, dark skin, nothing like the real Alicia. At first, the main character had simply passed by the woman he had been searching for all his life. Then, back to back, Elysia and Alicia froze. Something was off. The Duchess Uther noticed her daughter had fallen into a stupor and asked why. Alicia replied she'd rubbed her feet raw with her new shoes and hurried to her mother, but her voice trembled. That voice was painfully familiar to Elon. Every note, every timbre, every vibration. Despite her changed appearance, he immediately recognized it. That voice had been his guiding star, the most precious sound in his life. Each day began and ended with it. The Duke, too, couldn't help but recognize Lorena's voice. He missed it more than anything in the world. All this time, the main character wanted to hear only that voice, and now he couldn't believe his ears. Why had the girl lied about her appearance? Her real name was Alicia Uther. Such a beautiful name. A blush coloured Elan's cheeks. Now he knew what she looked like and where to find her. Bernard knocked on the Duke's door, asking when his lordship would come to eat. Today, Ilana had spent a long time at the palace, but usually returned hungry. It was time to try the delicious delicacies of Duke Claven's kitchen. Bernard worked hard in the kitchen. Why didn't the owner share the manager's delights? Let him say goodies first. Elon suddenly remembered he'd forgotten to ask Bernard what Lorena looked like. That was a mistake. Are we talking about Lorena again? Didn't Bernard mention luxurious gastronomic delights? She has violet eyes, rare to find, silver curls, and a naive, pure smile. Many people showed interest, but her lack of identification reduced that attraction. You should have asked the manager about her at once. It would have saved time. Let Bernard bring Lorena's papers, the ones he received when he hired her, Elan demanded. He slammed his hand on the table. Why had she lied about everything? Alicia had no reason to hide her identity. She couldn't seriously think Elon wouldn't recognize her by her voice. She meant no harm from the start, though she raised many suspicions. Lorena cared for him better than anyone. She even healed his sight, but none of that mattered now. After their wedding, they'd have plenty of time to discuss it. Bernard dropped the tray on the floor, staring at his master in shock. Why had Elon said what he did? His young master was going to get married, and Bernard hadn't heard a word about it. Why did the young man want to marry now, right after returning to life? Who is she? Why is it all so sudden? Bernard asked. Elon had seen her documents. The manager had only been gone a couple of hours, yet the gentleman was already a suitor. There were still surprises in store. The main character would go have dinner. Perhaps that was all he wanted to say. What a ruthless villain, Bernard muttered. Impossible. I'll go crazy. Let my lord start looking for a mental hospital for him, Bernard sighed. I'm doing my best here. It's all so unfair. His beloved, without even noticing. The girl dreamed endlessly of seeing him again, replaying their meetings 1,000,000 times in her head. But suddenly, she felt bitter, almost wanting to scream that she was the one. But that probably meant nothing to Elon anymore. The most beautiful young man was healthy again. How she longed to see him with her own eyes. All this time, Lorena had dreamed of Elon opening his eyes, seeing the world again, and being happy. Because he deserved it, more than anyone else. She could hardly hold back her tears. Who was taking care of him now? Was Bernard helping him choose clothes? Had they hired a new maid? On the other hand, Elon was a great warrior and always independent. He probably chose his clothes himself. This was the future she had prayed for 1,000 times. But what was wrong with her feelings? The realization that Elon no longer needed Lorena tore her soul apart, leaving a dull ache in her chest. The Nola system corrected those who complicated the main character's life, meaning she was now Alicia and had found her place. Elon restored her sight. Had the world sent her where she belonged? She shouldn't be next to Elon. He didn't need Lorena anymore. The main character was just a secondary guest here. Why was the girl frozen in place? Was she really afraid of the audience with the Empress and unwilling to go forward? It's nothing special, she told herself. Her new shoes were simply rubbing her feet terribly, so she stopped to rest. She ran up to her mother as if nothing had happened. Her Highness couldn't be kept waiting. The maid led the ladies of the Uther family to her Grace's private chambers, where Ilan stopped. The main character was unable to take another step forward. He froze and began watching Alicia. The Emperor was glad to hear that the daughter of Duke and Duchess Uther had improved her health. "Let the lady sit quickly," he said. "It's true. Lady Alicia has lost her memory." The Empress was always present at her prayers, sometimes waiting for hours to meet her. Does young Alicia remember anything like that? "She's sorry to disappoint your Majesty," the Duchess replied. But to be honest, her ladyship had no idea that memory loss could be such a serious problem. The Duchess supported her daughter. Alicia doesn't even remember the rules of etiquette. She had to be taught again. The Empress reproached Alicia for poor posture, but Alicia simply didn't remember. "Still, that's no reason for leniency," the Empress said sharply. The Duchess thanked God that her girl was alive and well. How are preparations for the debut ball going? Asked the Empress. There were reasons to postpone, but it will take place this year, said the Duchess. What will you say if Alicia's debut happens at the Imperial Palace next week? Melia was grateful for the care, but worried there was too little time left. We won't make it in time. Lady Karina Harrington also planned her debut on the same day. Her Majesty has given her permission. Both ladies are having their debut balls late, so it's better for Alicia to perform on the same day. The Duchess was grateful to Her Majesty for the favour. Since all matters had been decided for today, the Emperor expressed his pleasure at their next meeting. The ladies bowed politely. Alicia was so ashamed she'd spoken nonsense. Anyone would be nervous in such a situation. She had nothing to apologise for. The maid stopped the ladies. The Empress wishes to speak privately with Duchess Uther. A place for Miss Alicia to rest has been prepared in the summer garden. The maid will escort her there. It was strange and frightening, but Alicia did as she was told. What a beautiful garden at the Imperial Palace. Still, the garden at Elon Cav's estate was far more beautiful and desirable. Today, their long-awaited meeting took place. How she wanted to touch him, to talk, to wait. Why did she think of the main character all the time? These thoughts drove her crazy. What should she do with these uncontrollable feelings? He didn't need Lorena anymore. The girl didn't notice the stone under her feet and tripped. The hem of her dress tangled around her legs. Alicia almost fell, but was caught by a strong and painfully familiar hand. She was safe. It was Elle. Her heart ached treacherously to feel his touch again, to be so close to him. Only now could the most beautiful young man see her, and she could see his beautiful scarlet eyes. She always thought his ruby eyes would frighten her once he regained his sight, but nothing of the sort happened. His eyes were as beautiful as everything else about Ellen. She almost called him Saviour by name, but immediately covered her mouth with her hand. She was deeply grateful for the help. The main character bowed politely to Lady Uther. Why did Elon continue to hold the girl by the waist? Alicia was completely fine. If someone noticed such closeness now, there would be trouble. Elon didn't think so. Curious onlookers will only envy us, he joked. Duke Claven said it to make the lady smile. But Alicia was not smiling. What is the name of this young guest? Damn it. She'd have to say the name of the owner of this body. Of course, she could say her name was Laura, from another world, who had been courting him under the name Lorena. But then she'd be taken to the hospital immediately. The girl's name is Alicia Uther. She bowed gracefully in a curtsy. They had not met before. Why was she so awkward? She wanted to fall through the ground. Her bow was terrible, and what was wrong with her hair and dress? Was it wrinkled? The young man seemed to be savouring her name. Alicia Uther. What did that mean for Elon? How did the girl know he was a duke? So she was a good girl. What should she say now? She had only heard rumours about the duke's long-awaited healing. So Alicia immediately thought this was the duke before her. Remus. Well, yes, the girl had a strange premonition, as if Elan saw right through her. The main character lowered his face, just inches from Alicia's, looking closely to see if she had been found out. A deafening silence hung over them. Elon acted like a bloodhound. The wait was excruciating. Maybe she should just admit she was Lorena. How awkward and exciting it all was. She wasn't ready to indulge her heart with fantasies of their intimacy again. Moreover, the Duchess had convinced her daughter that any fall from grace would be a serious blow, not only to her, but to their family. No one should know Alicia had worked as a servant in Duke Claven's house. Rumours had nothing to do with the truth. Only intrigue mattered, and intrigue could destroy their family. Despite everything, the girl really wanted to see the healthy eyes of the main character. Just as she was thinking about it, Elon was already standing right in front of her. She had to be careful what she wished for. Lorena could hardly contain her emotions. She wanted to know how he felt what worried him, whether everything was okay, and if the young man was finally happy. Her mother would have turned pale with horror if she had seen their conversation. It was time for Alicia to leave. The consequences of such meetings were unpredictable. It was better to avoid them. Her heart broke into pieces. Was such a random encounter truly fate? Elon offered them some tea. What had come over the Duke? The young man really wanted tea with Alicia. She would have given anything for time with him. But why would Elon need it? He never drank tea with ladies, according to Bernard. Yet suddenly he proposed a tea audience with the first person he met. The lady was fine. She looked scared. Yes, everything is fine. It's just that a cold wind blew sharply. There is one place here. The girl invited Duke Claven to sit at a table in the summer garden. Wait, why were there already 2 cups on the table when the place was only prepared for Alicia? Oh, said the Empress's maid? Then what was the second cup for? Surely the second cup was for Duchess Uther? Stop making things up, said the maid. There are already 3 types of tea: ginger with honey, black tea, and dried orange tea with a special aroma. Damn it, what was Alicia doing? She started explaining everything like in the good old days. A warm smile appeared on the protagonist's face. Why did the lady fall silent? Let her continue. Enough talk. It was just that Alicia was a huge fan of tea. She'd rather pour a cup for the Duke. Be careful, fresh tea is very hot. The taste should be rich and spicy. How interesting. Elon never told the lady he drank orange tea, she discovered. The young man didn't like tart or sweet tastes, so she chose the orange flavour. She knew everything about Elon's preferences. She needed to lie urgently. Orange matched the colour of his eyes. What she brought was like a rainbow, red followed by orange. Alicia thought orange would complement his beautiful scarlet eyes, and she was right. It was crazy and so embarrassing. She wished she could just go out the window right now. She needed to smile and wave. The protagonist finished his tea and thanked Lady Uther for her kindness. Duke Claven had one question for the lady. Of course, they had never met before. The ruby eyes instantly became serious and focused, as if awaiting an answer desperately. The girl raised her gaze to the most beautiful young man. The truth would only harm everyone. Alicia sighed heavily. This was our first meeting with his lordship, the main character said, shaking his head in disappointment and thanking the girl for the delicious tea. Lady Alicia has excellent skills. Duke Claven was pleased to meet her. The feeling was mutual. The protagonist would be glad to meet Miss Uther again. She hadn't heard that right. Alicia was very glad her modest skills had been liked. Have a nice evening then.